In Harlan Coben's most recent book, Win, he writes about the character from the Myron Voltaire series, Win. But if you backpedal a little bit, before that book, he released The Boy from the Woods, in which we get to meet Hester Crimstein, the lawyer from the Myron Voltaire series. I'm going to talk about this book in today's video. So hello and welcome. This is Book Talks with Miss Thomas, and I'm Miss Thomas. I started this channel initially for my students to encourage them to read, and I've only been doing it about a year, but I've just made some interesting friends along the way, and I wanted to talk today about Harlan Coben's book, The Boy from the Woods. Now, before I get into that, I do want to tell you really quickly just a neat little story about why I read that book. There's a friend from that I know of who her child and her grandchild struggled with COVID. They had COVID in their family, and this is August of 2021, and so we're all kind of struggling with the whole COVID pandemic. And I just was thinking of her and praying for her, and I sent her a text and I said, you've really been on my mind, and I figure you're running around a lot to different medical appointments, maybe driving members of your family or dropping off food or whatever. So I wanted to give you a book so that you could read when you're in between appointments or errands, something just to take your mind off of all the things going on. And so I gave her a book along with a gift card to carry-out restaurant, just to be thoughtful during this difficult time. And I wanted to share that because she gave me 3 Harlan Coben books, because she knows that Harlan Coben is my favorite author. And I just thought that was so great how you try to do a nice thing for somebody, and in this case it literally came back to me threefold, because I got her 1 book and she gave me 3 books in return, which she wants, she'll want them back. But I'm not a keeper of books. I see booktubers with all these beautiful bookshelves and I think they're fantastic, but I'm sort of minimalist. So I like to read the book and pass it on. So she gave me, among 2 other books, she gave me Harlan Coben's The Boy from the Woods. And so I wanted to read that one right away, and so that I could return it to her right away, because it's one of his more recent books. And I've just been curious about it and thinking about reading it. So I read it. It was good. I liked it. I do want to say also, if you saw my Win review, I didn't like Win, and I feel a little bad about that book review because I love Harlan Coben. I just didn't care for that particular book. And also, I'm so new at this booktubing thing. I look at that video and I go, egads, this sounds bad, and I'm still learning. But I did like Harlan Coben's The Boy from the Woods. And one thing I liked about it was the insight that it gave me to the character Hester Crimstein. So I really liked that. It's interesting. I didn't like that about Win, but I did like that about The Boy from the Woods. I felt like the Hester Crimstein in this book was consistent with, the Hester from all of the other books in the Myron Voltaire series. It's just that we got a deeper look at her. I'm going to try to give you a summary of the book first and then tell you my thoughts on the book. So some of you may just want the summary and that's it, because Harlan Coben's the great writer and I'm just some lady talking on YouTube. So I completely respect that. So I'm going to try to stick with the summary of the book first, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. So a summary of the book, The Boy from the Woods. It's like any good mystery book. It has a lot to it. There's a lot of subplots, so it's going to be hard to give you a concise summary, but I will try my best. The Boy from the Woods is titled that because it begins with a news article about a boy who was found in the woods. And he is then called Wild as an adult because he started, in the woods. And he was taken in by foster care, and he had a sister that he grew up with in foster care. And that was all fascinating. And I really hope that Mr. Coben will do a series on that, or at least a book about Wilde's childhood and his experience with his sister in foster care, because they were great characters. But that was not really the premise of this book. This book is about, well, it's not even about Wilde, but Wilde is one of the narrators. He's talking about the story. We get some of his inner thoughts in the book. He's investigating another missing person. So The Boy from the Woods is just a news article. And then you fast forward to his adult life, where he is friends with Hester Crimstein, and Hester Crimstein's grandson, Matthew, is actually the beginning of the storyline. Matthew, the grandson, needs help. He's worried about a high school student. Matthew's a high school student, and he's worried about a friend of his, a girl, Naomi, who is missing. And he's worried about her safety, because she's missing. And so he asks his grandmother, Hester Crimstein, for help, and she calls Wilde and asks him to help her. So it was really cool, because you find out about a little backstory from Hester Crimstein, and I might go into that later in the video, but you just need to know for now, she had a son named David who was friends with Wilde when Wilde lived as a child in the woods. So Hester Crimstein had like a log cabin that backed up to the woods. There was woods behind her cabin, and her son David, when he was younger, would go out in the woods, and he befriended Wilde, and then Wilde was discovered in the woods, and he went into foster care, and now he's this successful investigator, and he's with his foster sister that he grew up with. They are an investigative team. So Hester Crimstein asks for his help. And throughout that, you also see Hester Crimstein battling with memories of her son David, Wilde's friend, because David died as an adult in a tragic car accident. So you get a lot of Hester's inner thoughts there, and I thought that was a really interesting component of the book. But Matthew has this friend, he's the teenage grandson, he has this friend who has disappeared, Naomi, and he's worried about her. So Hester and Wilde are looking for Naomi. The story is a little bit about Hester and her internal conflicts, and Wilde, and a little bit about him, but really the story is about how they try to help Matthew find this girl, Naomi. And Naomi is the victim of bullying gone wrong in Matthew's high school. All the kids are really mean to Naomi. They've always bullied her ever since elementary school. And Matthew has participated in that, and he feels badly about that. And he's genuinely afraid for her safety, because she disappears one night after some bullying, and he was there when the bullying happened, and then she disappears, and he feels responsible. So he has Hester and Wilde looking for her. Now, Naomi was bullied at a party by the most popular kid. I don't even remember his name, but he was a really popular, spoiled, rich kid, and he was kind of a jerk, obviously, because he was the main bully. But he's a major player in this story too, because the bullying occurs at his house, and of course he comes from the rich and powerful parents, and the rich and powerful parents are of course involved in some hidden corruption. And so there's a lot of subplot with the bully and the rich powerful family and the things that go on there. So that was interesting as well. All right, I think I've covered all of the key players in the story. There's also a little bit of a political component. The rich and powerful parents are connected to this political force. I think he's a senator, but there's concern that he could become president, and he is apparently pretty radical and dangerous. And then of course there's some radicals that are opposed to his rise to power. So there is the missing Naomi, and then there's some other, there's another missing character, another missing teenager in the book, and there are some wealthy, powerful people involved, and you've got this character Wilde with his sister who are looking for first Naomi and then the other teenager. And you've got Hester Crimstein struggling with the memories of her son who passed away. And overall, it was a very good book. And one thing I really liked about the book is that, and this is something I consistently say about Harlan Coben and something I consistently like about his books, is that the answer is right there in front of you the whole time, but you just don't see it. And I've been reading his books for years. I'm a big fan, and I love when I get to the end of the book and I'm thinking like, wow, I just didn't see that, you know, and yet it was right there the whole time. So there were definitely some things in the end of the book that surprised me, and I was just impressed that, you know, those things hadn't occurred to me, and yet they clearly could have happened. I definitely recommend the book, The Boy from the Woods by Harlan Coben. And I will say of Hester Crimstein, I think what I liked about her was that, you know, she is in the Myron Voltaire series. She's kind of the ball-busting, smart-mouthed attorney who, you know, is just really aggressive and together and with it. And you just see this really tough woman lawyer, and you see a softer side of her in this novel. You see her as a mother and as a grandmother, and you see her grieving the loss of her son, and yet it was believable. You could believe it. You could really see that, okay, so this is a side of her that she hides when she's working, you know, because she's a professional, and that was very believable. I didn't feel that way about Wynne. I felt like with Wynne, you see him throughout the Myron Voltaire series as very shallow and just the fun-loving character, and then in the book Wynne, you see him as like trying to be Myron Voltaire. You know, he's all of a sudden trying to have these deep philosophical thoughts, and it didn't work for me. But I will say with Hester Crimstein, it did work. I really could relate to the Hester of the book, and I thought it was consistent with the Myron Voltaire series. So I recommend The Boy from the Woods by Myron Voltaire by Harlan Coben.